Hi y'all, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about redefining success. Usually when I think about success, the first thing that comes to mind is accomplishing a goal or making it to a point where, or making it to a goal that you set for yourself. Basically just accomplishing a thing. And I feel like that's a very broad sense of what success is. But when it came down to actually researching and doing and preparing what I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to redefine what success actually looks like, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So per usual, I do have 4 points about my topic today, so let's go ahead and get started. First point being, success isn't about status. The world ties success to money, status, or popularity, but true success is about living aligned with your God-given purpose and values. I've never thought about success in this way, meaning I'm successful in my life if my life is living according to the life that God planned for me. And this was really crazy because I've never thought about it this way, and understanding that me simply doing what I believe I've been called to do is me being successful in my life, and simply because that is what is God's plan, and it's all aligning together, and that in itself is me being successful. I feel like sometimes young people are wanting to have this feeling of success and not feel like a failure, or not feel like they're just kind of being dragged through or whatever. But sometimes you have to take a step back and look and see, what is it exactly, is what level of success are we really looking for? Because according to the first point, it's not about having a certain amount of money, it's not about where I stand in the world, it's not about my status, and it's definitely not about being popular. So what exactly is that level of success that we're looking for? And I've never thought about realizing that I'm successful in my life by simply following the plan that God set for me, and that's enough. Going into point number 2, obedience over accomplishments. It's not about how much you achieve, but how faithfully you obey. Obedience to God in the small things often matter way more than big public wins. I was thinking about this one, and simply being obedient and simply following after what I believe I'm called to do, or listening for God's voice and following accordingly, or listening for his instructions on how to approach a certain situation or how to go about a situation, is way more successful than, I would say, maybe a worldly achievement, or making it to a point or a goal that you may have set for yourself. Simply being obedient is so much better than making these big accomplishments and these big achievements. And like the point said, it's not about how much you achieve, but how faithfully you obey. And that's where the true success lies. That success that comes from knowing that you fully obeyed God, that you didn't hold back, and that you went full force into whatever it is that you were called to do, or whatever your instructions were to follow. I feel that that success is a whole nother kind of feeling from just simply accomplishing something or achieving a goal or whatever. Simple obedience is very overlooked. It's something that I feel we have diminished, the true value of true obedience, or the best value that comes from true obedience. Simply obeying God is successful in itself, because how many people out there are really obeying God, really listening to his voice, and really following his instructions, So to be able to say that you're one of those people who obey God and you do your best, not that you're perfect, but you go through the steps as carefully as you can by making sure you're doing exactly as you've been instructed. To me, that's a very successful person over someone who has these lists of achievements and these lists of accomplishments and goals that they've completed, because only the things we do for God is going to last at the end of the day anyways. So I would much rather be successful in my obedience to God than my successful and worldly achievements. Going into point number 3, peace is a measure of success too. If chasing success leaves you drained anxious, or constantly comparing, it's not God's version of success. His way brings peace and rest, not constant striving. This point ties into number 2 very well, just because feeling of obedience should leave you with a sense of peace as well, versus feeling like you constantly have to measure up, or you constantly have to be working towards the goal, or you constantly have to be striving, like the point said. If it comes to a place where you're just constantly like drained because you feel like you're not making any progress, or you feel like a failure because you're not seeing any success per se in this process that you're going through, or you're just constantly comparing where you're at to where someone else is at, I feel that's when it's more accomplishment and goal oriented versus obedient, like referring back to point 2. Whereas if we start to feel these things like this is not what God has envisioned for us as far as what being successful looks like, if you're beginning to feel anxious, or if you feel that you aren't where you would like to be, or you feel like you're drained and you're tired, that is not what God wants for you, and it's not his version of success that we should be going for. It should be a version of success that makes us feel at peace because we're walking hand in hand and step in step with God. Our 4th and final point: success looks different in every season. What's considered successful in one season may shift in another. From building to waiting to serving, trusting, each stage will still carry value in God's eyes. This goes back to point 3. I love how all of these points just kind of tie into each other, and I didn't even really see how that was going to work, but I love how they all just kind of work together. Where in point 3 we talked about how constantly comparing isn't what success looks like in God's eyes, which leads us into point number 4, where one season of our life can look successful to us, and then going into another season it may not be as successful, which we go back into point number 3, where comparing is a major issue, where we shouldn't be comparing where we are in our season where God may have someone else in their season. I heard someone say once that we shouldn't compare where God has us to where the devil may have someone else, simply because of what it looks like. We may see someone on social media, and it could be like a Christian influencer. We see them and we're like, oh my gosh, they're just so blessed, or like they have all this stuff going for them and da-da-da-da. But you don't know what they had to do to get to that point. You don't know the battles they had to face, because of course they don't put everything out on social media for you to see. So you don't know exactly what they had to go through to get to the point where they did show all of this glamorous part of their life out in front of the camera for people to see. Measuring success should only be measured by the standard of God and where he has us in our lives, and not by where someone else may be in theirs. So different seasons can look successful for different people, and even if it's 2 separate seasons in your own life where one may look more successful than the other, that is okay. It's not something that should be frowned upon or something that should discourage you, because we're all learning as we're living. So one season may feel like you got it on the first try and you just kind of made it through whatever it is that was there to test you or to try to throw you off, but you made it through and it was great. Whereas going into a different season, you can feel like you stumbled and you fumbled the ball multiple times. Even in those seasons, we shouldn't compare success, because this can be a different level of learning that you're supposed to do in one season versus the other. Whereas the first season may have been something that was not such a deeply rooted issue that was like, you need to work on this, whereas another season may be exactly that. So you just never know. So success does look different in different seasons. That is today's episode of Let's Talk. I'm glad you guys have been watching, and I'll see you next week.